Hello, health and wellness champions. Welcome back. Today, we're going into a health question many of you have probably wondered about. What would actually happen if you stopped eating bread for 30 days? Now, with so many types of bread, like Ezekiel bread, white bread, whole wheat, sprouted bread, and even sourdough, you've probably heard mixed opinions. Some people call bread junk food, while others praise certain kinds as health food. So, what's the real story? Let's break it down. Before we move into the core of this health and wellness video, if you're excited to learn more about health and wellness, take a moment to hit that like button and share this video with friends who might find it helpful. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. Your support helps us bring you more valuable content. And as you watch, let us know your thoughts or questions in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you and might even cover your topic in our next video. Thanks for being here with us. To start, let's look at what bread is really made of. Bread is about 80% starch, which is a type of carbohydrate called a polysaccharide. Now, polysaccharide may sound complex, but it simply means that starch is made up of many linked glucose molecules forming long chains. These are what we call complex carbohydrates, and they've gained a reputation as being healthier than simple sugars. But here's the catch. As soon as you eat bread, your body starts breaking down these long chains of glucose into individual sugar molecules almost immediately. These sugars then enter your bloodstream quickly, raising your blood sugar levels just like regular sugar does. So, while the starches in bread may be complex, they don't stay that way for long. This rapid breakdown into glucose causes a quick rise in blood sugar, which triggers a spike in insulin. Insulin's job is to manage blood sugar levels, but when it's frequently spiking, it can lead to issues over time, especially if your body starts becoming resistant to insulin. So, if you decided to cut out bread for 30 days, you'd likely start seeing benefits related to blood sugar and insulin. You'd notice a drop in your blood glucose, a reduction in A1C, which measures your average blood sugar over several months, and even an improvement in fasting insulin levels. These changes would mean that your body is becoming more sensitive to insulin, which can be measured by something called HOMA-IR, a helpful indicator of insulin resistance. Now, bread isn't the only food that can affect these levels, but for those who are closer to the diabetic end of the spectrum, cutting out bread could be a powerful step towards seeing your numbers shift into a healthier range. And if you've ever dealt with uncomfortable bloating or gas, bread might have something to do with that too. So, where does this gas come from? Well, it's actually produced by bacteria in your digestive tract, and those bacteria thrive on carbohydrates, not just bread and sugar, but many types of carbs. When you eat, carbohydrates are broken down at different rates. Some, like glucose, are absorbed quickly, while complex carbs take longer to process. The digestion process starts in the stomach, where some glucose is absorbed right away. Then, the rest of the carbs continue their journey into the small intestine, where they take several hours to travel through the winding maze-like tube. As these complex carbs move through the small intestine, they gradually break down further into glucose, which then gets absorbed into your bloodstream. The idea is that most of these carbs should be fully broken down and absorbed by the time they reach the large intestine. The large intestine is where most of our gut bacteria, or gut flora, resides, containing billions of bacteria per milliliter. By contrast, the small intestine has far fewer bacteria, typically only in the thousands. Ideally, by the time carbs reach the large intestine, everything digestible has been absorbed, leaving only fiber, which our bodies can't break down, for the bacteria to consume. Here's the catch. When it comes to carbohydrates, there's a trade-off. You can either raise your blood sugar or you can feed your gut bacteria. Simple carbs, like those found in white bread, break down quickly and don't reach the large intestine, meaning they don't feed the gut bacteria, but do cause spikes in blood sugar. Complex carbs, such as those in whole wheat, take longer to break down, allowing them to travel further down the digestive tract and eventually make it to the large intestine. This process means they are more likely to ferment and cause bloating or gas as they feed the gut bacteria along the way. For those with certain digestive complaints, whole wheat can sometimes be even harder on the stomach because it takes longer to break down, often resulting in greater discomfort. And for some people, there's an even more challenging issue, a condition called SIBO, or small intestine bacterial overgrowth. In this case, bacteria that should stay in the large intestine end up backflowing into the small intestine, usually because of a weak ileocecal valve, a valve that separates the two. When bacteria multiply in the small intestine, where they shouldn't normally be, they get easy access to carbs, creating gas and bloating as a result. For those struggling with SIBO, it's often necessary to restrict not only bread, but many other carbs. However, for most people, cutting out bread alone for just 30 days can reduce bloating significantly, providing noticeable relief. In the past few decades, however, modern agricultural practices have transformed these ancient grains into something almost unrecognizable from their original form. Through hybridization and selective breeding, we've created what we now know as modern wheat. This process involved experimenting with over 25,000 different varieties, resulting in the grains we commonly consume today. But if we look at this in terms of our 10,000-year agricultural timeline, the introduction of modern wheat is just a tiny sliver, representing a recent and significant shift. The main goals for modern wheat have focused on yield, durability, and baking properties. Today's wheat is designed to resist cold, pests, and droughts, and to yield more per acre. It's also optimized to have higher gluten content, making it perfect for creating fluffy, elastic, and airy bread. However, while these changes have made wheat easier to grow and bake with, little attention has been given to how this new form of wheat impacts on our health. Unlike meat and vegetables, which have been consistent staples for 250,000 years, modern wheat is a dietary newcomer. Our DNA has adapted to process naturally occurring foods like meat and vegetables, but modern wheat's genetic changes are so recent that we don't yet fully understand how well our bodies tolerate it. Although not every new food is necessarily harmful, the lack of long-term testing on modern wheat's health effects is concerning. One major reason to be cautious about modern wheat, and grains in general, is their impact on nutrient absorption. Grains contain compounds known as anti-nutrients, which are natural chemicals that hinder our bodies from absorbing essential nutrients. A prime example is phytates, which bind tightly to minerals, making them difficult for our bodies to absorb. When minerals are bound to phytates, they're essentially locked up, preventing us from accessing that nutrition. Additionally, grains contain enzyme inhibitors. Enzymes are essential for breaking down food, allowing us to digest and absorb its nutrients. Our DNA produces enzymes specifically designed to fit with certain foods, but enzyme inhibitors found in grains can block these enzymes, especially those responsible for breaking down proteins. As a result, our ability to digest protein can be significantly compromised. In addition to phytates and enzyme inhibitors, grains contain other anti-nutrients such as oxalates, tannins, and most notably, gluten. Gluten often gets the most attention in discussions about the pros and cons of grains and bread. It's actually a mixture of hundreds of proteins, divided primarily into two groups, glutenins and gliadins. Glutenin proteins create elasticity, giving dough its stretchy texture, while gliadin proteins allow bread to rise and become light and fluffy. This unique combination makes wheat particularly popular for baking. While gluten is often associated with celiac disease, affecting about 1% of the population, its effects go beyond just this condition. Celiac disease causes severe immune responses when gluten is consumed, damaging the intestines. However, there is a growing recognition of non-celiac gluten sensitivity, where people without celiac disease still experience negative symptoms when eating gluten. This reaction can be understood through the concept of intestinal barrier resistance. Rather than functioning like a simple on-off switch, our gut barrier's strength exists on a spectrum, from fully resilient to highly permeable. In those with non-celiac gluten sensitivity, consuming gluten can compromise this barrier, leading to increased intestinal permeability, often referred to as leaky gut. When the barrier weakens, it can lead to a variety of symptoms, like bloating, fatigue, and joint discomfort, and research suggests about 13% of people report experiencing symptoms linked to gluten. This number likely represents only those who notice and report their symptoms. The real figure could be higher, as gluten's effects are often subtle or cumulative over time. In clinical settings, wheat sensitivity is frequently observed, and many people feel significantly better when they reduce or avoid gluten altogether. For some, avoiding gluten results in noticeable symptom relief almost immediately. However, even if no clear symptoms arise right away, limiting gluten intake can still support gut health over time, as gluten consumption gradually weakens the intestinal barrier in many individuals. Reducing or removing gluten and bread from the diet may offer various health benefits, including better digestion and improved nutrient absorption. This isn't about drastic restriction, but rather giving your body the chance to operate optimally without the potential impact of modern wheat and processed grains. Another group of compounds to consider when talking about bread and wheat are lectins. The primary lectin found in wheat is called wheat germ agglutinin. This is a particularly sticky protein that attaches to epithelial cells. Epithelial cells form the barriers on surfaces inside and outside the body. So, while epithelial cells make up the skin on the outside, they're also responsible for creating barriers within the body, like those found in the gut. In the gut, there are small, finger-like structures called villi, and on each villus, there are even tinier structures called microvilli, which form a brush border. These microvilli have little carbohydrate antennas that enhance nutrient absorption. However, wheat germ, agglutinin, with its sticky nature, attaches to these antennas and refuses to let go. This attachment causes stress and inflammation, gradually damaging the brush border. Lectins like wheat germ agglutinin are strongly linked to leaky gut syndrome. When the gut lining becomes more permeable, larger food particles can slip through, triggering the immune system and increasing susceptibility to autoimmune conditions. But the effects of lectins go beyond the gut. Epithelial cells line blood vessels too, and when these sticky proteins attach to the blood vessel walls, they create similar issues by increasing permeability. This allows oxidized LDL particles, which can contribute to cardiovascular disease and plaque buildup, to seep through. The damage doesn't stop there. Lectins also interfere with brush border enzymes, which are essential for breaking down food. When the brush border is compromised, enzyme production drops, affecting digestion and nutrient absorption. In addition, lectins have been shown to interact with insulin receptors, pushing the body towards insulin resistance and fat storage. They can even block leptin, a hormone produced by fat cells that signals satiety to the brain. When leptin signaling is blocked, you don't feel as full, which may lead to overeating. Eliminating bread for 30 days can help reduce the intake of phytates, allowing for better mineral absorption. Avoiding bread also means steering clear of lectins and gluten, both of which contribute to leaky gut and inflammation. With less inflammation, the brush border can heal, leading to improved nutrient absorption and a healthier digestive system overall. This simple change may reduce the risk of autoimmunity, irritable bowel syndrome, and a range of digestive issues that are common today. Most people will likely see improvements in their health by reducing or eliminating bread from their diet. While bread isn't the only factor that can affect gut health, it's definitely one of the most impactful. By cutting it out, you'll improve both leptin and insulin signaling, which can lead to reduced cravings and better satiety. This, in turn, may help lower blood sugar levels, decrease the risk of type 2 diabetes, and even lower blood pressure. Enhanced leptin sensitivity can also help reduce overeating, which could naturally result in weight loss. Now, many people may argue that bread is too important to give up, that it's a staple that has shaped human civilization. And it's true. Agriculture, especially grain cultivation, allowed for the development of settled communities. With reliable food sources, people could move beyond hunting and gathering, allowing for societal roles like teachers, merchants, and craftsmen, ultimately leading to the civilizations we know today. Grains have also helped feed the world's growing population. However, we aren't stuck in that model. We now live in a world with advancing technology and resources, where we're capable of producing sustainable farms that don't rely solely on grains. There's an opportunity to cultivate diverse crops and even return to ancient grains that don't carry the same health concerns as modern wheat. Yes, better quality food may cost a bit more, but think of it as an investment. We can either pay upfront for healthier options or pay later with healthcare costs. In the United States, only about 8% of income is spent on food, while over 20% is spent on healthcare. The tendency to choose cheap, low-quality food often results in chronic health issues that require costly treatments, which don't address the root problems but merely provide temporary solutions. Processed grocery store bread, for instance, often includes additives like seed oils, trans fats, and chemicals such as dough conditioners, emulsifiers, and preservatives. One common additive, potassium bromate, is even banned in many countries. Avoiding these breads can lower your toxic burden, offering relief to organs like your liver and kidneys. Now let's look at the different types of bread and why it can be so confusing. White and wheat bread are actually the same grain. Both are wheat, but processed differently. White bread has been stripped of the bran and germ, leaving just the starchy endosperm, where most of the gluten resides. Whole grain or whole wheat bread, on the other hand, uses the entire kernel, grinding it all down. When it comes to blood sugar impact, both white and whole grain wheat breads are remarkably similar. While whole grain bread is often marketed as a healthier option, the difference in blood sugar response is minimal. Nutritionally, however, white bread is much worse. It's essentially on the same level as processed sugar, lacking the bran, germ, minerals, vitamins, and fiber. As for anti-nutrients, whole wheat bread is higher in these compounds, which can block nutrient absorption. But in processed white bread, it hardly matters. Most of the nutrients are stripped away in processing. Now, let's talk about celiac disease and gluten sensitivity. Interestingly, both white and whole grain bread contain gluten, as it's primarily found in the inner part of the grain, the part used in both types. But when it comes to allergens and lectins, whole grain bread can actually be worse. That's because the outer shell of the grain, which remains intact in whole grain bread, holds most of the plant's natural defenses, including lectins. These compounds can trigger sensitivities or even allergies in some people. However, whole grain bread does have more fiber, while white bread offers very little. While I'm not suggesting that white bread is a great choice, it's barely better than sugar. It's important to understand that gluten and allergens, including lectins, can be equally or more problematic in whole grain wheat. Avoiding both white and whole grain bread may provide health benefits, especially for people with gluten sensitivity or other wheat-related issues. All of this primarily applies to modern hybridized wheat, the kind we mostly find in grocery stores. But what about ancient grains? Ancient grains tend to be much better in terms of blood sugar impact, as they often contain more protein, sometimes twice as much as modern wheat. While they may contain similar levels of anti-nutrients as whole grains, ancient grains are typically easier to tolerate for people with gluten sensitivities. Many individuals find they can eat ancient grains without experiencing the same issues they encounter with modern wheat. If you have a severe condition like celiac disease, however, even ancient grains won't be suitable. But for those who are mildly sensitive, switching to ancient grains may be a viable option. Now, you might wonder if organic bread makes a difference. While organic bread reduces exposure to chemicals and pesticides, the issues we discussed, such as gluten and lectins, remain the same. Organic or not, wheat-based bread still has similar health impacts. Another popular option is Ezekiel bread, which is made from sprouted grains. Is it any different? Well, sprouting does provide some benefits. It can break down some of the starches and lectins, increasing nutrient availability. While it's a bit better than traditional bread, it still contains gluten and isn't free from all the irritating compounds. For some, giving up bread feels nearly impossible, almost like an addiction. Why? The answer lies in compounds called exorphins. These are similar to endorphins, the feel-good chemicals our body naturally produces, like the runner's high. However, exorphins come from external sources. When gluten breaks down in the body, it forms gluteomorphins, which act like morphine by crossing the blood-brain barrier and binding to pleasure receptors in the brain. This might sound extreme, but it's backed by research. When heroin addicts are treated for overdose, doctors use an antidote called naloxone, which blocks opioid receptors, counteracting the heroin. Interestingly, naloxone also blocks the effect of gluteomorphins, indicating that these wheat-derived compounds indeed act like opioids. In studies, participants at a bread-filled buffet who took naloxone consumed 33% fewer calories. Researchers saw this as a potential weight loss breakthrough and even considered developing it as a drug, until they realized it wasn't quite so simple. Why? Because blocking these receptors doesn't just reduce cravings. It also suppresses the brain's reward system, leading to decreased mood and motivation. Imagine the instructions. Take your anti-heroin drug before eating bread, and don't forget your antidepressant. This approach reflects the typical medical model, where one intervention often leads to another, creating a cascade of imbalances. However, the body is incredibly adept at achieving balance on its own when given the chance. So, if you decide to cut out bread for 30 days, you may initially experience some withdrawal symptoms. But remember, your body is designed to adapt and rewire quickly. After just a few days without bread, you may find that you feel more calm, have better focus, and experience a more stable mood. I encourage you to try this for yourself. Track the changes you notice over those 30 days, writing them down to get a clear picture of how it impacts you. After the trial period, you'll be in a great position to decide what's best for you. If you choose to reintroduce bread, consider ancient grains like einkorn, emmer, spelt, kamut, or rye, which are typically easier on the digestive system. And keep bread as an occasional addition rather than a daily staple. If you enjoyed this video, you'll find even more valuable insights in the next one. And if you truly want to master your health by understanding how your body really works, make sure to subscribe, hit the bell, and turn on all notifications so you never miss a life-enhancing video. Thank you for watching. If you found this video helpful, please give it a like and share it with others who might benefit. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so you never miss a new video. And do not forget to share your thoughts, questions, or experiences in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you, and we'll address it in our upcoming video series. Thank you again, and here's to your health. Thank you, and know that your support helps us bring you more health and wellness content for a healthier life. Thank you again, and here's to your health.